Hey, it's Tonya, and we are doing something a little bit different. I got a mic, and so I'm gonna hold it. I have no idea how to use it yet, so bear with me. But anyway, I am going to put you to an intro that I created for a little series that I'm starting. So please enjoy. Hey, it's Tonya, and I've decided to do something a little bit different on my channel, and it's a little series I like to call a Bible deep dive because I have been diving into books of the Bible to see, are the stories true that I've heard growing up my whole life? Because I haven't read them for myself, so how would I know? And I want to see what is the history that was happening at the time of this book of the Bible that might affect the story itself, and does it say what I've been told my whole life? I want to know, what is my interpretation of this Bible story, and is it the same as the pastors or the youth group leaders or whatever I've had growing up? And as a reminder, this is my interpretation of the Bible, not the Lord's interpretation, and those can be very different things. And I'm not a paid theologian. I don't get paid to research the Bible all the time and come up with theories. This is just something I'm doing in my free time. So let's get into it. Now that you know what we're doing, I wanted to go through and start with the book of Esther. So I'm going to scoot over and we're going to get started. All right. So I have decided to try something different, and I'm going to have something over here, as you can see now. So this is going to follow along with us. I have included some of the scriptures here. I'm not going to read the entire book. I'm just going to go through and again talk about the history and different things like that. But this I'm going to write on as we go so you can kind of follow along with me in a little bit more fun way. So I also have my notes here. So I'm going to be kind of using my notes as we talk so I can kind of give you the right information without messing you up. So anyway, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the history of Esther. Okay, so what was going on in the history of Esther? What was happening at the time? So this is the point where Esther starts. What's going on? We don't know exactly who wrote this book, but it's assumed that it was Mordecai, which is Esther's family member, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. But this is the time around 460 to 400 BC. And this is the time of the Persian Empire. And so this is the point where Jews have been exiled. They are not living in their home. So what I mean by this is there was war, and the 12 tribes of Israel had been split up into two kingdoms because they've been conquered. They're basically carried away to different lands. So the first is the north, and that's Israel, which is the Assyrians at the time. And the south is Judea, however you say that, and that's the Babylonians. Again, like I said, when they were conquered, they'd be carried off to the distant lands, and they would continue on as refugees in those lands. So they were kind of stuck in that land. If they didn't like the leader, too bad, you're stuck with them, or else you die. I don't actually know if that's true, but basically you're stuck with what you got, and be thankful that you didn't die. So again, in the time that this is happening, this is the best empire that the world has seen to this point. And the king is King Xerxes, and he's also known as this name that I don't know how to say, Absirus. Anyway, I'm going to call him Xerxes today. This guy is basically at this time pretty proud of himself. He has conquered a lot of land, and he is a leader to be reckoned with. He has decided, you know what, since I've done so good, we're going to have some banquets. We're going to throw a party. We're actually going to throw 3 parties. So the first party is all of the government officials, and this one lasts for 180 days. It goes on for quite some time. And then when that one's completed, then he decides, you know, the citizens of the capital, they should really have a party too. So that one goes on for 7 days. And then after that, the queen says, you know what, the ladies need a party. And so she has one for all the women of the palace that belonged to the king, which means these are probably concubines. These are probably women that the king has obtained that he does not call the queen, but they're his women. And basically they live at the castle, which is what I assume from what I was reading and what I researched. So again, he's feeling pretty proud of himself. He's doing good. And in the next section, it's talking about he was merry with wine. The dude was happy. He was drunk. And he said, my life's going great. So he says, you know what? Such a great idea. Since I'm so clear of thinking, I am going to have my queen come in with her royal crown because she was known for her beauty and she was lovely to look at. So when I say come in with her royal crown, this doesn't mean, hey, this is cute. Put on your little crown and come show off how cute you are and how pretty you are and show all my friends. It means, girl, you coming in the nude, or you're coming in looking pretty immodest. So she decides, nope, not gonna do it. She refuses, and the king becomes enraged. Again, he's drunk, so he's probably not thinking very clearly. But from also the research that I have seen, this guy was not very nice to his queens. They were not exactly in the best situation as a queen. But anyway, he decides, you know what? I can't have this. The queen cannot treat me like this, because if you think about it, he's trying to impress lots of different people. He has refugees from all over the world that are in his land, and they have to fear him and appreciate him as a king. So he can't let one woman, and again, women were not viewed as nicely as we view them today in our culture. They were viewed kind of like trash. And if a woman, if she could stand up to the king, other people can, and people can try to overthrow him. So he can't have that. So he decides, you know what? This queen is done. We're not doing this. I am getting a new queen, and she is banished. So he banishes her. Now, something to keep in mind, between this and the next slide, there's actually a slide of time. There's a little bit of a difference, because the king decided, since I'm so successful, I want Greece. I want it for myself. So he decides to invade Greece, but he loses. Oh, gosh darn it, he loses. And so he's like, well, something's got to cheer me up. I forgot I wanted a queen. And so basically he decides, you know what? Beauty contest. We're going to have a beauty contest. We're going to pick out a new queen, and she's going to be the hottest in the world. So again, remember there's 4 years here. So this is now the next section. And this is where the king has decided, you know what? I'm going to have beautiful young virgins from all over my, again, Persian Empire, which was huge at this time. He decides to have a bunch of virgins be brought in and become this, beauty contest. They're all going to join the beauty contest, and we're going to see how this goes. Something else to keep in mind, he decides, we're getting a new queen instead of Vashti, and this pleases him. Now, when I was doing research, it sounds like there was a lot of women brought in, but I was like, how many women were brought into this? Like 20 or something? Like the hottest girls from like the 20 little cities and things like that? No. Some historians were saying about 400 women from the entire Persian Empire were brought in for this. So this was a big ordeal. And it wasn't a quick thing either. It was going to take some time. So this is where our main character comes in. Her name is Hadassah, but we call her Esther. Basically, that's a different name that she was given in that Persian Empire location. So she was actually related to this guy named Mordecai. It's her uncle, and he's been raising her because her parents are no longer around. She's an orphan. So Mordecai has been raising her for years. He took her in as his own daughter. So at this point, when the king puts out his edict where he's going to have all these women come in, Esther was brought, and it's known that she was very pretty. She was known to be a very beautiful woman, but she's a part of the harem. So from what I read about a harem, these women are not just brought in for a beauty contest. They all belong to the king now. They're a part of his harem. If they don't win the beauty contest, They just have to sit in the castle or like basically do the king's bidding forever, but they don't get to have children. They don't get to like carry on their family line. It's almost like you're dead to him if you don't win, but you also belong to him. So you're like trash. So there's a reason to win, and you really want to win in that scenario. So while they are waiting for this beauty contest, they have to wait quite some time, but they are provided with cosmetics and other kinds of things. They are supposed to become pretty while they're waiting for this to happen. And they're supposed to win favor. So they provided her with all these cosmetics, and they're telling her, you got to become hot. You have to do this. In this, again, the first regular 6 months, you have certain beautifying standards that you have to do. Then another 6 months, you have another different beauty thing. So it's like a beauty routine, but on steroids. This girl was pampered. So if she was already hot, think about how hot she was after this. Something that you should know is that Persia was known for their perfumes and oils and things like that. They were known for these things, and they had certain customs where they wanted the girls to smell real good, because if you think about it, that was the time before showers were invented, so you stunk. And so these women, they had, I'm going to read some of this. This was special baths, hennas, special makeup, different skin pastes. Oh, those skin pastes were made to make the skin lighter. So there kind of could have been like a race thing there. And it would also remove things like pimples, like skin impurities, and make the women more beautified. So again, all these beauty standards that they had to have. So something fun to know. She's in the custody of the king's eunuchs. So I looked this up because I wasn't exactly sure what a eunuch was. Basically, it's men that cannot conceive, and they can't take advantage of these women. It's the king's trusted people that they are there specifically to take care of these women and not take advantage of them, because the king wants them to be a beautiful virgin that he can then take advantage of. I'm joking, but that could be true. It's probably true, actually. Anyway, she's getting her beautification process, and at this time, I want to just mention that she is Jewish. She's kind of keeping that to herself because they're not exactly viewed as the most amazing, but in that location. So anyway, she's in the custody of the eunuchs. I forgot to mention, there were 6 months of one beautifying process, 6 months of another beautifying process. That means she was doing this process for 12 months. That's a long time. And I wondered why it was so long. I read also that they wanted to make sure that these women were not pregnant already, and so that was a way to also make sure that they were not pregnant and were gonna have somebody else's child, and then the king gets embarrassed and has to marry a pregnant lady. Anyway, so that goes on for 12 months, and during this time, at the end, she would get to see the king one time. She had to make a good first impression, because that impression is what mattered. And she also had to impress the eunuchs, because they're also speaking to the king on the women's behalf and things like that. So she was viewed as like a very good person. The eunuchs liked her. And then she also impressed the king. So the king loved Esther more than all the women. She won. She won the grace and favor in his sight. So this means she is now chosen as the queen. Yay, Esther! That's so good. You did so good. You win. So that's when they get married and everything. So Esther has now won the life of a queen. She is now the queen. So she is doing all of her queenly duties. But then, all of a sudden, Mordecai, her uncle, discovers a plot that some of the king's eunuchs are going to try to lay hands on him and maybe kill him. And so he discovers this murder plot, and he's tells Esther, who then passes the information on, and it saves the king's life. So this thing is written down in some chronicles that the king keeps and like the kingdom keeps. So this is a good thing for Mordecai. He has done a good thing. So that's kind of forgotten. He discovered the plot. But now another guy enters the scene. Boom! Haman is known as the bad guy in this story. He is a big character though, because he is the second in command. He is set above all the officials. He's second in command for the king Xerxes. So he's really trusted. But something that I found in my research is he was a descendant of the king Agag. That's the Agite. That guy was a sworn enemy of the Jews. So this is something that's kind of been passed down in his family for generations, I believe, that like we hate Jews. So it kind of becomes a racism thing, in my opinion, or like he hates a whole group of people because he hates them, because it was something that's been passed down. So that's something to keep in mind. And so this guy, anyway, he's a big deal. Everybody's like, oh, Haman's amazing. I need to bow for him when he passes. I need to do all of these good things. I need to pay homage to him. That's kind of talked about multiple times. But who doesn't bow down to this guy? Mordecai did not bow down or pay homage, which made this guy insanely angry. It actually was talking about his friends or like other people told him, like his advisors or helpers is what I'm trying to say, were like, hey, did you notice that guy didn't bow down? And he hadn't even noticed. It was his friends that told him basically, yeah, that guy didn't bow down. And he was like, oh, I'm angry. This is so awful. And so this guy decides, you know what? This is ridiculous. This guy should be doing everything for me. He should be like worshiping the ground that I walk on, but he's not. He was so mad that he decided, I'm going to destroy all of the Jews, not just this one guy that made me mad. I'm going to kill all of them. I'm going to get rid of them all. So he and his friends cast some lots, which I was like, what is casting a lot? What is that? And basically, I'm going to read my notes again. It was a random way that they chose the date for things, like rolling dice or drawing straws. It wasn't anything like too crazy, but they figured out a date that they were going to destroy all of the Jews. And Haman's job now, he decides, I'm second in command. I need to get the king behind me. So he decides to get the king to make an edict to kill all the Jews. But he does it in a backwards and a slight-handed way. He decides to make it sound like these are some people that are against you, and they really need to just be destroyed. They're not keeping your laws, and so they're a danger and they're bad. And he basically bribes him. He said, I'll pay 100 talents of silver, and I'll take care of it. I'll take charge. I will take charge of this thing and do it. So basically the king's like, how could this not be a bad deal? All I know, these are people that are against me that are probably threatening my life. He doesn't mention how many people he's killing. He just says a group of people. And he's like, you know what? Fine. You're paying for the whole thing too? Great. All right, go for it. Do that thing. You go for it. He trusts him so much that he says, the money is given to you. The people also do with them as seems good to you. So again, I don't think the king knew that this was all of the Jewish people, because there were lots of people at that time. And so I think Haman was very vague on purpose to try to make sure that he got his way and he got to do what he wanted to do. So a date is set, and it's not a dozen people, it's thousands. He gets the king's signet ring and he creates an edict. And that edict is to destroy, kill, and annihilate all of the Jews, young and old, women and children. And that's a pretty brutal thing. So everyone's kind of like, what? And so the whole city was thrown into confusion. And I was thinking about it. If all of a sudden you were told, hey, yeah, your neighbor, yeah, they're actually bad people, and we're gonna kill all of them. So you have to kill your friend who's done nice things. You live next to them, and they're like nice people. Here's the date that you have to kill them, and we're not giving you more information, really. Just do it. So that's no wonder it's confusing. Like, the Jews don't know why they're getting killed because there's not really a reason. Their friends and like the people that live around them are like, what? That doesn't make sense. I'm sure there are some people that are like, oh, thank God we get to kill them, because they would get to plunder all of their wealth and everything. And the Jewish people were known to be good with business and good with like jobs and things. And so they wanted to plunder that wealth. That's some good money. That's some good wealth. And that's something to keep in mind. Like, it's not just because they get to do it. It's because they're going to get stuff out of it as well. The next thing that happens, boop, Esther agrees to save the Jews. But what happens? Her uncle Mordecai, he tears his clothes and puts on a sackcloth. I had to look that up because I didn't know what a sackcloth was. But it's like a coarsely woven fabric that's mainly made out of like goat hair or like thick material, and it's not like fashionably cute. It's something that a lot of people would use as a sign of humiliation, or mostly like grief. Like when somebody's sad, you put on a sackcloth and you're grieving. This is basically something he's doing, and he's doing it at the King's Gate, which is like a very popular location basically. So he's like really, he's, you know, covered in ashes. The guy's upset. And rightly so. So Esther later learns that he was deeply distressed. And so she's like, what is going on? She didn't know about the edict. She hadn't seen the king for a while. She didn't know what was going on. And so it was Mordecai that finally told her, you know what? Like, you got to do something. You got to save us. And so I kind of blew my mind, because I was like, she's the queen. Shouldn't she know everything? Like, isn't she? But again, women weren't viewed as valuable as they are today, and you know, whatever. But anyway, so she realizes that all of the Jews are going to be put to death, and she realizes, okay, that's not good. She's like not wanting to do anything. She's like, I just don't think it's my place. Whatever her reasons are, maybe she's nervous. But Mordecai says, you know what? Don't think that the king is going to spare you just because you're the queen. You are a Jew. The edict is to kill all the Jews. Something to keep in mind is she hasn't seen the king in 30 days. That's a month. She is not often seeing the king. She just won this contest, and she's kind of out of the picture. She's like, yay, you won. You're the queen. Yay. But like, she doesn't have this status that like you would think of that a queen would have, kind of thing. And so she's nervous. Basically, it's a big deal to bring things up to the king. And she's like, you know what? You better fast for a bunch of days. I'm going to do it too, but like, I'm going to do it. If I perish, we all perish. And you know, that's not good. But she's like, I'm stepping up. I'm going to do it. So what's next? Esther has to do something very brave. She has to approach the king. But the inner court was forbidden for like most people. You weren't allowed to just go there. You had to be invited. And if you weren't and you showed up, you could be put to death because the king didn't invite you. You weren't asked to be there. So the interesting thing is she had one favor in his sight, thankfully. God blessed her. And he said, yeah, come on in, girl. Come on in. I'm excited to see you. I haven't seen you in a month. How you doing? Anyway, so he doesn't kill her. She survives. And she's like, I don't know if she's nervous or if she is just smart in her approach. She says, you know what? I would love to throw a banquet for you. And, you know, stroking his ego, I would love it to be all about you. I want to serve you. I want to do all these lovely things. And you know what? You should bring your friend Haman. So Haman gets to come to the feast too. So they have this feast, and it's lovely, it's wonderful. And she, the king's saying, like, what do you really want? Like, what's something that I can give to you? And she says, how about you come to another banquet, and we'll do it tomorrow, and you can come to that one. And he says, okay, great, we're gonna have another party. Great. So I don't know if this was her being nervous and chickening out, but she says, you know what? Come back tomorrow and we'll talk about it, and I'll tell you what I want. So what's next? The next thing is Haman is an angry man. He decides, you know what? I am so mad. Here you go. He was filled with wrath against Mordecai because this guy, he's not honoring me. He's not trembling before me. He needs to fear me and do nice things to me. And so I don't know if this guy has like a bad self-esteem and he's trying to boost his ego or something, but this guy has this anger towards Mordecai just because he's not like worshiping the ground he walks on. So I don't exactly know what's going on there, but basically his friends are like, you know what, he should be worshiping you. That's ridiculous. You should just, before your edict comes into effect and you're killing all the Jews, you should just kill him now. That'll make you feel better. So he says, you know what? We're going to do this, but we're going to do it in an awful way. We're going to do this thing. So he decides we're going to build some gallows, 50 cubits high. And I was researching this because I was like, are gallows like you're getting hanged? Like, what is that? And I'm going to read my notes again. The cubits, 50 cubits high is 75 feet high. So that's like a really tall thing. He wants it to be very public. And the gallows, from the research I was doing, it wasn't really a hanging back then. It's a little bit different. And it's known as a violent death, like a very violent death. And what's going on is it's a stake that's put upright. I'll use this. It's a stake up in there. And the people are placed on it like so. And it goes through them all the way to their neck. What? Pardon? Okay. That's worse than I thought it was. So this dude, it wants like a violent death. He wants a public death. He wants it to be awful. Like he truly has this wrath for Mordecai. And again, I wonder if it's like Satan messing with him, because you don't have this much wrath towards somebody unless there's like something going on, and maybe I'm speaking too much to it, but in my opinion, there's something. So while that's going on, he's building his little gallows, 75 feet, whatever. Anyway, he's building his torture mechanism. The king is trying to sleep. He's a king, but dude still can't sleep. He's human. And so he's like, hey, somebody come read me a bedtime story. And so they bring out the memorable chronicles. And what story happens to come up? Mordecai. That story where he saved his life. Yeah, that came up. And he's like, what did we do to like celebrate that guy? And they're like, yeah, we didn't do anything. He's like, what? That's ridiculous. We gotta celebrate this guy. What should we do? I don't have any ideas. And you know what's very, very good? Haman is finally coming back, and he's like, who's around? Haman, come here. I gotta talk to you about something. So Haman comes from the outer court, and he's coming from those gallows that he's planning to kill Mordecai on. And he's like, hey, have him come in. What should I do if somebody has done a lovely thing for me and I want to make a big deal about it and I want to celebrate this person? What should I do? And Mordecai's like, well, he's probably talking about me. So what would I want? And he's like, you know what? That's a good question. Who would you honor more than me? Anyway, so he's like, you know what? Bring out your royal robes. And that person should also be on your horse, your most noble official. Walk him around on your horse and say, this guy's awesome. This guy's wonderful. And he has to proclaim, thus it shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. So you should do that. The king's like, you know what? That's a great idea. Go do that for Mordecai. Yeah, get on it real quick. This guy's trying to kill this guy, and he has to go and be like, this guy's great. This guy's awful. So he's wonderful. And I'm sure he felt awful because of that. So as you can imagine, Haman is not happy that he had to do this. He is so upset. He's like, what the heck? He hurries to his house and he's mourning with his head covered. He's so upset. He's like, and he's throwing a fit and he's talking to his friends. He's talking to his wife. And it's interesting because there's some foreshadowing here. And his wife is like, you will not overcome him, but you will surely fall before him. So his wife is like, okay, this isn't great. She felt something in her gut, and it was probably the Spirit of the Lord. And she's like, you hate these Jewish people so much. You're not going to overcome them, but you're going to fall before them. And I was like, the foreshadowing, dang, okay. Not to ruin the story. Hopefully you've heard the story and I didn't just run it for you. But anyway, so basically she's like, yeah, that's not good. Like, dude, you gotta chill. But all of a sudden he's like whisked off because now he's got to go to bring him to the Feast of Esther. So he's like, okay, well, at least I'm being honored once again. I'm gonna have a party, me, with the king and the queen, and this is gonna be wonderful. So he's like, at least I'll get one great thing. So Queen Esther is having this feast, and the king's like, okay, what do you want? I really want to give you something. What's the present that you want? She's like, okay, I guess I'll tell you finally. If I have found favor in your sight, please let me have my life in my people's lives. For we have been told to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. And the king is enraged. He's like, somebody's plotting to kill you? What kind of psychopath is going to do that? No, not my precious queen, not my amazing, beautiful wife. So he's like, who did it? Who did it? I'm gonna do something about it. And the queen is like, my enemy and my foe, Haman, he did it. And she like straight up points at Haman and is like, that guy's trying to kill me. Do something about it. And the king's ticked. He's like, are you freaking kidding me? You're trying to kill my wife? And I was thinking about it. I was like, this had to be kind of smart in her eyes because, again, she didn't mention that she was Jewish at this point. She just said, me and my people. And so she's being pretty vague, like Haman was pretty vague with the king. Because, again, if you remember, the king didn't know what he had done. I don't think so, at least. And so he's not knowing what he's done. And then Haman has, like, been vague. And so the queen is like, fine, I'm going to be vague, too. But I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall and seen Haman's face when she's like, he did it. He did it. Now, I'm kind of making jokes to make this more fun, but Esther was so brave and so strong. This wasn't really oh my gosh. It was like, this guy is doing this and we need to fix it, like right now. So at this point, Haman's like, oh, I'm terrified. Oh, shoot. I'm stuck with the king and queen. The king is like really mad. And in fact, the king arose with his wrath from the table and he went out to the garden. He decides, you know what? We're going to go to the plants. We're going to go and calm down out here. And in the meantime, Haman was like, Esther, please, I'm begging you to save me. Please, please. Haman, messed up even worse, and it was like, oops. When the king was walking back in, he fell on the couch where Esther was. So it looked like the dude was attacking her, and the king's like, what? This guy's trying to attack my queen even in front of me in my own house? Oh, heck no. So basically, he's like, get rid of this guy, kill him right now. So he sends him off to get killed on that 75-foot steak that he had made for Mordecai. He was on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. He's killed on the only things that he made himself. So again, it's a steak. Gruesome death, very public, very embarrassing. And that's how he went out. So what's next after that? So after that, it's actually kind of funny. Esther was given the house of Haman. So she could do whatever she wanted with his house, aka like his line, things like that. So she's like, you know what? Who would be better to have that than Mordecai? And so Mordecai was actually given the house of Haman. So it was like he fully won over. But then Esther's like, we got to get to business, king. My life is in danger. All of the Jews' lives are in danger. You need to undo that edict that you did. And the king's like, once it's been put in place, I can't undo it. I'm so sorry. Like, I can't revoke the letters by Haman. It's like, once it's in stone, it's in stone. So then he's like, you know what we can do though? We can make another edict. And so what happens? A bunch of people get together and a new edict was written. And this edict was sent out very quickly. They talk about, like, they send it out with their best horses, things like that. But basically, because that one couldn't be revoked, they made this new one. And the new one said, you know what? The people are to be destroyed, but this edict says, you know what? These people can protect themselves and you can help protect them. And only the people that want to attack them will attack them. And so basically, they're able to defend themselves, and they gather and defend their lives, and they're able to take vengeance on their enemies. So they're able to protect themselves, and they're able to, take care of themselves and save their families, save their lives. Because of this, the Jews were able to destroy all of their enemies. And I was kind of looking at it, and I didn't realize any of this, but it was talking about all of the people that they killed, and it was like, there's 500 men, and then there's 75,000 men, and 300. Oh, they killed a lot of people. But this is kind of important. They never took anything from the people that were attacking them and killing them. They never, here it is, they never laid hands on the plunder. Even though they were killing these people, they weren't taking anything from it, which was the reason why other people were trying to hurt them, was so they can steal all their stuff because they're so successful. So I thought that was kind of interesting. That wasn't their point of it. So after this, the people decide, you know what? We are going to have a feast every year to celebrate this win. And that's when, I'm going to butcher it, Purim. This is when this is put into place. It's a celebration feast. So I was actually talking to a friend that is Jewish, and she was saying that this is actually a big event for the Jewish community, and they have like parties every year, celebrations every year. And so I was talking to her, I was like, what do you guys do for that holiday? And she said that they put on different plays. They have like Haman is like one of the characters in the play, and they do different things, like when he says certain things. And so it's like made to be this fun thing. Oh, they even have these little cookies. I'll put a little picture on here. Haman Toshin, I'm probably butchering it, but evidently Haman would wear a little hat, and it's supposed to represent the little hat that he wore. And so I don't know, it just sounded like this was a big deal for the Jewish people. And again, I've been bringing a lot of light to this story, but like these were dark times. Like they were threatening to kill lots and lots of people. And Esther was able to save so many people. And I don't know that that would have been possible without the power of God, because so many things had to align. The beauty contest, the not being murdered when she walked in, all kinds of things had to go right. And so many things could have gone wrong, but they didn't. And I think that speaks to the importance of the Lord. So it goes on to talk about how great Mordecai was and how much he stuck up for the Jewish people and what he did and things like that. But I wanted to share something that I kind of thought about and was thinking about, because I never saw God's name mentioned in this book, but God was all in it. I heard something in a recent service at church, and the pastor was talking about our God is not aloof. He is involved, and if you allow him to be involved in your life, he will be. And so I just really thought that that was powerful, and I thought it was important to keep in mind, like, the Lord is there when you don't see him. He's just working in the background, and if you let him, he will be around. So that is the end of Esther. And again, I will put my notes on in the description below, so you are welcome to see my notes. I didn't say everything that I wrote down, but Esther's a wonderful book, and I really appreciate it. So my tip of the day would be read the Bible for yourself. See if you find anything different. If you know other things that maybe I didn't share, put them in the comments, because these are what I've found, but I know I'm missing so much, especially the history stuff. For some reason, I really like to know the history of what was going on at the time and how it affects the Bible story itself, and like what's different today, things like that. So if you have any of that, you're welcome to put it below, so it can be more of a discussion for people to be able to share. But read it for yourself. Don't take what I have to say. Read it for yourself and see what you have to say about it. And that being said, I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't talk to strangers unless they give you candy. And I'll see you next time. Okay, bye!